Hello, everyone. In these extraordinary times, where the world has their eyes on Gaza, and we as a community continue to advocate for true, lasting, and equal peace and autonomy in Palestine, Janice and I have the honor of sitting down and speaking with the Palestinian ambassador to the United Nations, His Excellency Dr. Riyad Mansour. A seasoned diplomat and highly skilled leader, he has just arrived in our city, and we cannot wait to sit down and hear his wisdom and thoughts. We welcome Dr. Riyad Mansour to this bonus episode of Hear Our Story. Welcome to Hear Our Story, the podcast where first-generation Palestinian voices take center stage. I'm Elias.
And I'm Janice Farhat.
Together, we're sitting down with family, friends, aunts, uncles, and yes, all your cousins too, so we can share the rich, complex stories of growing up between two worlds, the land that gave us life and the one that lives forever in our hearts.
They are not just our stories. They're stories that will feel familiar, maybe even like your own. So grab some coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive into these conversations that are as enlightening as they are entertaining. Your Excellency, ahla sahla, welcome to Jacksonville. Welcome to the Ramallah Club. It is an honor to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Our podcast always begins with a premise of history, asking each guest to name their parents, their hamula, and how they made their way to the United States. We know you were born in Ramallah, but we ask you to take it from there and to discuss your life, your background, education, and what brought you to the United States and what drew you to your life of diplomacy.
First of all, thank you very much for having me. I am so happy to be in Jacksonville. This is the first time that I meet the community, Ramallah community in Jacksonville and in Jacksonville Club last night. I've seen a number of them in different conferences and meetings for the Ramallah Federation. But this is the first time that I come to Jacksonville, and I'm so happy and impressed with the organization and the hospitality and the success of the community. Successful communities tend to be effective in advancing just causes and also in getting involved in the affairs of their city and the communities of their cities. And I believe that the community of Ramallah in Jacksonville is a well-respected community in the city of Jacksonville that qualifies them to be effective and influential in advancing the agenda of justice for the Palestinian people.
Thank you so much.
Having said that, I am from a refugee family. My father was a steel worker in Ohio. He was among the lucky Palestinians who was able to file for residency to come to the United States after the Nakba, because he was like hundreds of thousands of Palestinians were looking for opportunities of economic opportunities to be able to provide for their families. So my father applied among tens of thousands of Palestinian refugees to come to the United States as immigrant and to have an opportunity where he can provide for his family. My father was among the very lucky 200 from tens of thousands who filled the forms, because the United States government used a lottery system. It might be still in place, and they selected 200, and my father was among the 200. So he came to Ohio, and he initially started working in the steel industry there, the biggest in the Rust Valley. from Illinois all the way to Buffalo. He was in the Ohio area, Cleveland, Youngstown, that area. And then he started bringing us, the kids, to come and study in the United States. So this is my background. And often when I used to appear on events with Palestinian legends like Edward Said, Ibrahim Abulod, and then they present their impeccable academic, background and the schools that they went to, and that, of course, I went to schools in Ohio, and I have a PhD in a way similar to them. But also I used to add that I am a son of a refugee and a son of a steel worker in Ohio. And I'm proud of that part of my resume, in addition to everything else that is related to you. So this is my Hamoudi.
You should be very proud. You should be very
I am.
proud. Thank you for sharing that.
Mr. Ambassador, Palestine has experienced so many significant events. 1948, 1967, and of course the First and Second Intifada. Phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire is now underway, as well as the formation of the Board of Peace. Even with all of this is by no means a peace deal, and there are still continued atrocities. The list goes on. Do you feel that with the rise of social media within the last 20 years, the tide is turning, and social media and the press have helped advocate for Palestine in telling the truth?
I think social media is a very important evolution in communicating ideas and advocating for a just cause like the cause of Palestine. And many who did research in that field concluded that among the younger generations, they get their information mainly from social media, not from traditional media. Because traditional media, historically, until now, did not indulge in the question of Palestine with the sufficient amount of fairness and exclusivity. They cover the other side extensively and to the minute details. And when they are forced to cover our narrative, it would be like when they cannot ignore it anymore. I just remember, for example, during the first popular intifada of the Palestinian people, at that time, we did not have CNN and the cable televisions. We had only the three major television stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS. And they used to have the news at 6:30 for half an hour. And during the first year of the first intifada, almost 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes of their news coverage was about crushing the hands of the Palestinian children who were resisting occupation by basically throwing stones. And that allowed the story of the Palestinian people to enter almost every American house. And that was remarkable then. But it's very quickly the major media outfits went to old habits of not paying much attention to the story of the Palestinian people and their quest for their inalienable rights, including their right to self-determination, statehood, and the right of the refugees. But they were covering extensively everything related to the other side. Then came the social media. And then the social media made it so easy with also the evolution of technology from reading books and reading newspapers. And if you have the patience to listen to the three major media at 6:30, but now it was accessible to them with cell phones, with iPads, with laptops, to communicate with whomever they want in all corners of the globe. And then they started getting information from Palestinian counterparts, kids, high school students, college students, telling the story directly. So that changed the landscape, and it is now reaching an epic level, because when a small story go viral, you talk about millions of people that would follow it. So in that sense, you can say the field has been leveled to a certain extent with the younger generation. But with those who are the leaders and the decision makers, they have their own sources of information and reporting and calculation. And therefore, you don't see a significant shift, although there are shifts. You can see it in the Senate, in the House, but to a smaller extent, not to a large extent. But nevertheless, you don't see major shift in the Congress in the direction of justice, although I know that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, until the current administration, were committed to the two-state solution, but without getting us moving in that direction as quickly as we should have. So this is where we are. Social media is important, and the contribution of the social media in advocating for Palestine is remarkable. And for example, now also in the movies, we're having 3 movies in the Oscar in a few days related to Palestine, and I hope that one of them to win the Oscar. When one of these movies, the voices of Hind Rajab received the top award in the Venice International Film Festival in Italy, it received the longest standing ovation in the history of recognitions of film. I was told 27 minutes. We showed it at the UN in one of the large rooms, full house, and it reached the Oscar. And I read, I think 2 days ago, that it reached the final nomination. Mm-hmm. We have 2 other films which are remarkable, and I think that they are touring different cities. I don't know which one of them reached Jacksonville and was shown. But these are synopses of our stories and our tragedy. And we are all humans. And people who are not rigid in their thinking, and I believe the American people are of that kind. They are open to be touched and influenced by humanitarian stories if they have the opportunity to listen to it, and they tend to touch them and influence them in the direction of justice. So social media is huge, and other forms of media, cinema, for example, is also huge. And we hope that all these evolutions will get us closer to the day of liberation for the Palestinian people, and to live in dignity and freedom in our independent state of Palestine on the border of the 4th of June of 1967 with East Jerusalem as its capital. Of course, that requires making the ceasefire in Gaza permanent and sustainable. That means that we need to have humanitarian assistance to the scale of the needs of our people in Gaza. That means, after the release of the hostages and the 2,000 Palestinian prisoners, to release the other thousands of prisoners, Palestinians, from jail. It means also the withdrawal of the Israeli forces from Gaza. It means the rebuilding of the Gaza Strip, then moving in the direction of a political horizon, which there will not be serious peace in our region without the end of occupation and the freedom of the Palestinian people, and to have two states living side by side in peace, security, and harmony, so that we can start a new chapter in the relationship between the two people in the Holy Land, where we can be, like maybe France and Germany, in building the European Union. We could do, the limit is the sky in terms of the capability of what we can do if we have peace, if we have mutual respect, if you have mutual acceptability, but it cannot be done while there are occupiers and people living under occupation. You cannot have harmony with masters and slaves, but you can have harmony when we are all equal and moving in the direction with mutual respect and appreciating the capability of each other.
Thank you. Very well said. Thank you, sir.
Very much so. Mr. Ambassador, how do you define success in diplomacy even when the outcomes are not visible?
You're asking me a general question that maybe I am partially qualified to respond to part of it.
Okay.
The part of it is as it relates to the question of Palestine. I don't want to theorize about success in diplomacy in general.
Okay.
Because to a great extent, most of my life was devoted to the question of Palestine. Now, how do we define success in our diplomacy as it relates to the question of Palestine in a place like the United Nations, which is the arena or the theater of where I operate? I always say that the power that we have to excel, to excellence, and to be outstanding diplomats is to represent our people in the best possible way. We have great people, the Palestinian people, resilient, they steadfast, they don't give up, they love Palestine, and they pay the ultimate sacrifice and beyond. If you are guided by you want to be as good as the people who suffered immensely and still did not abandon the course, such as our people in the occupied territory, particularly in the Gaza Strip, then you set yourself to the highest possible standard in order to be as close as possible to replicate in the diplomatic field the greatness of our people in Palestine itself. So that's, if you are operate that way and you are honest, you are soft in presentation, but strong like steel in defending the rights of the Palestinian people, then you are guided. Those who will judge your success or failure are the people themselves. And I always say, if whatever the people of Palestine, especially those in Gaza, I accept their judgment in terms of whether we are representing them well or not. And I believe they know what we do, and they appreciate what we do. So this is the judgment of whether we are successful diplomat or not. Although often they get so frustrated, and correctly so, that you adopt so many good resolutions for us, but we don't see changes of our reality. they are correct. And therefore admitting that we are trying our best, but we are failing yet of changing their miserable reality to a better reality. So if you are honest with them and you admit to what you can accomplish and what yet you're unable to accomplish, the people are so smart that they know all the small details. They know the fake from the real thing, and they know the genuine commitment from the pretensions. And so that you ask me how do you succeed? Because of this culture that we have. And my team, I always tell them in New York, because we represent a super noble cause, 100% effort is not sufficient. You have to excel at 120, 130, and 140. And we are in the club of the best in diplomacy, and Palestine deserves the best of the best. So these are some of the elements of how we define success. And I am honored that for the last 20 years that I'm representing Palestine. I'd love to retire and to spend more time with my grandchildren, but I don't have the courage to resign, and I have not been fired by the Palestinian leadership.
No, I don't think you're going anywhere.
No.
I know your grandchildren would miss out on a lot, but at the same time, your heart is in both places, is what it sounds like.
Can you describe a time when compromise felt uncomfortable but necessary?
Well, you feel that all the time. For people, they think because you have resolutions adopted with an overwhelming majority, that you can dictate things. You don't blame people for thinking that way from observing how things are done at the UN from outside. But the UN, in which you have almost 200 countries representing the United Nations, because it is an organization of countries, member states. So everything that is done is a product of a compromise. No one can come and march and say, it is my way or the highway.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't work that way. So we are in the business of trying to get the best possible compromise for our people and for our cause. And then the art of diplomacy is not to push your luck more than you should and you fail, or to be not intuitive enough to know when you close the deal and the compromise. You cannot be 1 second late or 1 second ahead of your time. Now, how do you accomplish that if you are a successful diplomat? I tell my team, I cannot teach you that, but I can teach you perseverance, to do your homework to the best of your ability, to stay the course, to acquire the respect of your colleagues from all nations. But when do you say, yes, we accept this compromise? I cannot teach you when to do it at the right time, not a minute before and not a minute after. And this, you will acquire it with time. This is, for example, you are in Jacksonville, and this is one of the havens of golf. It's like putting. It's when you putt.
Yes.
You putt by your gut feeling.
Yeah.
Yes, intuition is what you're saying.
Intuition.
Yes.
It's just like there is nothing to be taught. They can teach you the swing. You can hit the ball from the tee. But when it comes to the short game and the green and putting, you know that it is a gut feeling, intuition kind of thing.
Yeah.
Even some instructors, they tell you, imagine how the ball will flow. You close your eyes and then you putt, and the ball should sink in the hole. How do you teach that? Difficult. Yeah. But compromise is not something that is evil. That the United Nations is the center of fine arts of compromise and reaching agreement, because the UN was established to save future generations the scourge of war, and by resolving conflicts through peaceful methods, through negotiations and compromise. So that's what the UN, if you read the Charter of the UN, the first few lines are reflecting this concept that I am talking about. So it's like some people think compromise, you're selling the cause. No. Compromise is getting fewer steps closer to reaching the objective of the Palestinian people.
Understood.
Very well said. Which goes into our next question. How do you prepare for negotiations with parties who fundamentally distrust one another?
In the process of negotiations, there is pushing and shoving and outmaneuvering and mobilizing. There's a lot of details. So although it looks an environment of niceties and politeness, it's like, having 200 lawyers in the room, asking them, to develop a document to address an issue. And each has an opinion, and each representing a country with certain interest. The genius among them, and those who are the most successful among them, are the ones who will not allow things to move in the direction of a deadline. You always have to find a crack in the wall so that you can continue moving ahead. Of course, it will not totally be with what you want. But if you have sometimes 70% of what you want is better than zero, nothing. Sometimes 80% is better. Sometimes 85%. You are working for trying to convince as many as possible to get to the best product possible. And sometimes you don't reach the compromise in a sense of consensus. Then you will be forced to put the subject to a vote. And when you do, reluctantly, but when you do, having 150 votes or 160 versus 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 against, definitely that is success. Of course, among those few, if there is a super powerful country, in one hand, you succeeded in having a resolution with an overwhelming support. On the other hand, the capability of a powerful country not to allow it to move forward. But you keep accumulating. And in physics, there is a principle that we were taught, that principle, that quantitative accumulation will reach a point to create qualitative changes. So we accumulate, and we accumulate, and we accumulate until we reach, the objective of ending the occupation and the attainment of the right of the Palestinian people. So that what we do, although it is not taking us to the end line, but we are marching. We receive the ball at the 1-yard line, and we are marching in the direction of scoring. And still we are marching. We are getting closer. We are not on the 1-yard line. We are not in the other side scoring a touchdown, but we are marching.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How important are personal relationships compared to official policy positions?
It's very important. And not only personal relationship per se, but personal relationship based on trust, respect, admiration, capability of also involving on other issues and being helpful. So to be seen as professional, not only fixated on one narrow issue, although, that's our top priority as it relates to our question, but we are part of humanity. And whenever we can help in certain areas, we do not hesitate to do that. And when we change our status to an observer state in the year 2012, that my mantra is that we walk like a state, we talk like a state, we behave like a state, we are a state. And if you are a state, you have to deal with the global agenda of humanity. And you have to deal with it in a comprehensive way, and you have to shine because Palestine requires from you to shine.
Good for you. Was there ever a cultural misunderstanding that taught you a big lesson?
Cultural misunderstanding. I am sure there was, but now you're putting me on the spot to try to remember it. I don't. I am always fixated on trying to have the best possible relationship with my colleagues. That is good for Palestine, and I can tell you with the complete humility, Palestine is extremely respected at the United Nations. And that is good for Palestine, and not because we are, good diplomats, because we are good diplomats, but because our cause is so noble and so respected by our colleagues, and we need to elevate ourselves to that level of respect by being, good with everyone, helpful as much as we can, positive, and looking for practical and realistic solutions.
How has diplomacy changed you personally?
I don't know what I was before diplomacy because almost all of my life was in it, So when I was young and studying in college, I was like all other students or most students, fighting for issues of social justice. I caught the tail end of the war in Vietnam when I was a student. And I was with my colleagues who were demonstrating for peace now and ending the war in Vietnam. And also I was part of the civil rights movement. But in these two cases, I wanted to include justice for the Palestinians, but the social movement in these two historical events or movements in the United States were not ready to include justice for the Palestinians. But after this genocidal war in Gaza, during the last 2 years plus few months, and because of the evolution of the social movement in the United States, particularly after Floyd and Black Lives Matter, the social movement was more ready, and maybe also that the media, the social media, the environment is different than the environment when I was, a student. And it was telling more about inclusivity related to social justice and social issues. So it embraced the Palestinian movement, and it became part of this very diversified movement that is moving in the direction of justice on social issues in the United States. And that's what explained in part the massive student movements during the first year of the war in Gaza, in which all kinds of students, not only Palestinian American students or Arab Americans or Muslim Americans, but Jewish Americans and Latinos and from all walks of life, were defending the rights of the Palestinian people and demanding ceasefire now. As we were saying, all what we're asking is give peace a chance as it relates to the war in Vietnam, then the slogan of today as it related to Gaza is ceasefire now, free Palestine, things of that kind, which is, these are steps in the long march of Martin Luther King for freedom and marching towards equality in the United States.
Yes, so many parallels.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mr. Ambassador, what advice would you give to someone who wants to enter foreign service?
In Palestine?
Anywhere,
Oh,
but especially Palestine.
I think in Palestine now, after we changed our status to a state and we are acting as much as we can to be like a state. So we have college graduates apply to join the foreign ministry. And I think they have exams and they have interpretation. And there is part of it, like in almost all countries, connections and relatives. I don't want to call it nepotism, but I think that that is the appropriate word for it. All these things are combined, is part and parcel of how you compete to become a member of the foreign service. That's in our case. And of course, in the United States, that they have in many colleges and universities that the State Department used to come to recruit.
Sure.
And forms and exams and what have you. I'm not very expert of how it was done in the United States, nor in Palestine either, because I am totally consumed with my work at the United Nations. And I was offered the post of being the foreign minister, but I did not accept because I wanted to keep doing what we do at the UN to help as much as we can advance our cause forward. I was afraid of the administrative part of the foreign ministry, where you have maybe 500 diplomats and each is complaining about certain things. And I believe in open door policy. I don't believe in closing the door. So I will end up talking to maybe 40 or 50 diplomats every day. I will not be able to solve most of their problems, and I will not be able to continue doing what I'm doing effectively. Yeah. So I decided, no, I'll stay where we are. Although I'm grateful that the leadership bestowed on me the rank of a minister. I don't want to say exactly like often in the case of the United States that the ambassador of the United States to the UN is a cabinet member. But of course, I cannot be a cabinet member per se because I cannot go and attend meetings in Ramallah every week or every month, flying from New York to going there. It's not going down to Washington, D.C.,
right,
which is easier to do.
If you could change one thing about how diplomacy is practiced, what would it be?
That's a difficult question, All of my experience was in the multilateral diplomacy, meaning in an institution like the United Nations, in which you are not dealing with one country, you are dealing with the entire population of member states. In the bilateral relationship, if you, for example, representing your country, and I am also an ambassador, non-resident, to the Dominican Republic and to Costa Rica. Now then, if you are in the bilateral on daily basis, then you need to know the foreign ministry and those who are handling different files, definitely the file related to Palestine. You need to know the leadership. You need to know the subcommittees in parliament who are handling global issues. You need also to be involved in mutual relations in the commerce field, in the trade, in the science and technology, in academia, in a different kind of things that in multilateral diplomacy, such as the UN, you don't deal with it on the basis of the state of Palestine versus, let's say, France. You deal with it on the basis of the 150 items of the global agenda of the United Nations, which covers all these subjects, but in terms of treaties and conventions that countries agreed to in order, for example, of how do we eradicate poverty. The negotiation that we spend years of negotiation to have the sustainable development goals and targets, covering everything related to the life of humanity in every country, and what the poor countries need in order, to catch up, and what the rich countries' responsibilities to help with in order to give assistance and support to poor countries to catch up. Or like a huge issue that is important to humanity as it relates to climate change. The conventions that we have, the biggest annual conference of the United Nations is the climate change conference annually, in which sometimes 100,000 people would be attending, between diplomats, private sectors, academia, civil society organizations, to contribute to what we should adopt as we address the negative effect of climate change on our lives and on our Mother Earth. So these are, different than dealing, with the bilateral. So therefore, when you ask me a question, what is one thing, it is not one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the multilateral track. I am not on the bilateral track to speak with authority. But on the multilateral track, I can speak with more authority than, on the bilateral track. So I'm just trying to be as objective as possible in giving you honest answer.
Of course.
Thank you.
Your Excellency, speak to the youth of our communities. What guidance and advice would you give them? What can they do on a grassroots level to advocate for the human rights of Palestinians and moving forward into their future? What can they do right now?
I always say that, to the youth and even the old and whoever in between.
Yeah.
This society, the United States of America, it's a unique experiment in the history of human beings. They call it the melting pot, which means everyone came from somewhere. So that it's not like you are different than me in any way other than maybe your parents or your grandparents came to the United States maybe 10 years or 15 years before my parents. So we are all equal. We are the same.
Absolutely.
And we are all melting in this society. So if that is the case, you cannot be effective if you try to behave that you are not part of this society. If you are foreigner to this society, you will be treated as foreigner. For example, if you are a kid from the Ramallah Club in Jacksonville, you go to high school and you say that I'm a Palestinian, I'm not an American, I don't like your traditions, I don't like these things, then you will be treated as a foreigner. Therefore, you will not be effective. But if you want to be effective, including in advancing justice for the place where your heritage is from, because most of those kids are born here.
Yes.
Maybe their parents were born here.
Yes.
In some cases.
Yes.
So therefore, you have to be proud that you are American and also proud of the heritage of where your parents came from, which is Palestine.
Amen.
This is the story of everyone. So the kid next to you, he might be from an ethnic Italian American or Jewish American or whatever American. So since all are equal in that sense, then be equal in that sense in order to be effective. If you behave that you are a foreigner, you will be treated as such, and therefore you will not be effective. But if you behave that you are a Palestinian American, proud of both, of being an American and the heritage of where you came from, so that your neighbors in the classroom cannot pick on you that you are different. You are like them because they are like you.
Yeah.
Then therefore, when you advocate for justice as it relates to the heritage of where you came from, then they will listen to you, you will be effective, and you will be fair.
Yeah, beautiful.
So
answer.
this is always, I say that don't act that you are, I know that some are angry and frustrated, especially the older folks, and maybe some kids, I don't know, that they say, no, we don't like the policies and we don't like this, and I'm not an American, I am Palestinian, or I'm a Pakistani. You see it also among
there's a lot of frustration out there.
Yes, frustration is, I understand it, but it has to be introduced, and it has to resonate that frustrated of an American of the heritage of being a Palestinian, which is everyone is that way,
of course,
in America, with the exception of the indigenous native population, which, unfortunately, we don't see too many of them. I don't know if they are in the same classrooms and others, but those, if they want to act differently, that they are not, that they're not citizens through the method of those who came from everywhere to this melting pot, then that's a different discussion. But since we're talking about the young Palestinian Americans, then the most important thing, do not behave as a foreigner. You behave as an American, so proud of your heritage, which is Palestine, and you care about justice for the Palestinian people, because the American society in general tend to support justice for everyone, and don't exclude the Palestinian from that tradition.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. What gives you hope in international relations right now?
Well, that is a very wide question. But if you ask me what gives me hope about eventually succeeding in Palestine, which is the narrow area of my specialty, what gives me hope is, the amazing thing that the Palestinian people go through. Like the amount of hardship and suffering and losses that we exposed to are sufficient for people to give up and to say, enough is enough, we cannot take it anymore. And the fact that they are not reaching that point is what fuel my optimism and eagerness to go the extra mile for accomplishing the collective objective of freedom and dignity, the end of occupation, and the independence of our state. So that's what gives me that. If I was exposed to collapsing things, I'm not saying physically, but in terms of the structure, the morale, and then you start saying that it's almost hopeless. There are some people who think that way. But for me, for example, When I go to the UN and the day before, when there was a ceasefire, in the span of 2 days, 2 hours each day, 500,000 of Palestinians would walk from the southern part of Gaza to the northern part. It's just like, how is that not inspiring to me that there is hope and there are possibilities and that there is determination that we will rebuild and we will make Gaza, maybe better than before. And we will rebuild what was destroyed in Jenin or in Tulkarem. So once our people make this determination and they act in this way, I would be a fool if I am not totally inspired of this, action to give me hope and to stay the course and to do my job in a better way.
Ambassador Mansour, during last September's UN General Assembly, we witnessed an extraordinary moment as countries from around the world voiced their recognition of Palestine as a state. From your vantage point at the United Nations, how did that global affirmation shape the diplomatic landscape, and what does it mean for the ongoing pursuit of peace, justice, and dignity for our Palestinian people?
Remember when I mentioned just a few minutes ago about that famous principle in physics?
Yes.
People, they see in September 22 of last year that the summit conference on the two-state solution, led by President Macron and a leader from Saudi Arabia, the foreign minister, and a large number of heads of states and government were in the chamber of the General Assembly. It was a historic peak moment in the history of the struggle of the Palestinian people in the diplomatic front. And then a large number of countries, including France, UK, Canada, Australia, just only to name a few, declared their recognition of the state of Palestine as an investment in peace and as an investment in saving of two-state solution. That is the end product of a process that, covered so many things, covered the tragedy of our people in Gaza and how it moved hundreds of millions of people everywhere to move towards justice for the Palestinians. It also included our tenacious effort, persistent effort to go to the International Court of Justice and take the entire Palestine question to be dealt with from legal perspective. And the International Court of Justice to make a historic advisory opinion. You call it advisory opinion, but in a ruling,
yes,
in essence.
Yes.
In which it explains the denial of the rights of the Palestinian people to self-determination by the Israeli occupation, the system of discrimination that amounts into apartheid, the illegal behavior on settlement activities, annexation of land, denial our rights for a long period of time. All these illegal things make this occupation illegal. And therefore, it has to be terminated as rapidly as possible. Among other things that the International Court of Justice determined. Then we go to the General Assembly and adopt a new resolution based on the ICJ that this occupation has to end in 1 year. And an international conference should be convened in order to agree into the modalities of how to end it. And through this process, we negotiate a historic document known as the New York Declaration, approved at the level of ministers in July and approved at the level of heads of states and government in September 22. So this is just only parts and parcel of how you cook this dish, Mansour, which we ate yesterday.
That's right.
People, they see the final product, a delicious dish. But, you have to bring, as I was told, the kishik, which is the yogurt
Right.
from Karak. You bring the meat, I don't know from where. You bring the rice from somewhere. You bring the sharak, the thin bread. And then you make the spices right. And you cook them together. And then you put them in flat dishes, so attractive, covered with all these pieces of meat. And you bring your dish, you take your portion of the rice and the sharak and the meat, and the lady, in a generous way, put the sauce to your desire, and you go and eat it. You can say, what a fabulous dish. But that required a lot of things, although this is only one day.
Yes.
So
a lot of moving parts.
I was so proud that, I was there in that moment. It was unfortunate that our president and our leaders were denied visas to come and to be with us there. But President Abbas addressed that meeting through teleconferencing.
Zoom, yes, the Zoom, the teleconference, yeah.
So our people and our leaders, they were there. I often say that when we talk about the children in Gaza, that I feel that there are thousands of angels flying with us in the Security Council, in the General Assembly. So while physically they are not with us, but they are with us. So it was a historic day.
Indeed. Thank you. Your Excellency, we want to thank you for being our guest today and for your lifetime of service to Palestine and to our people. Before we close, we would be honored to hear any final words of wisdom you'd like to share with our community.
I am privileged that by historical accident that I am the representative of the State of Palestine at the United Nations for the last 20 years this time as an ambassador. I served also for a relatively long period of time as deputy ambassador. And I am honored that I have this historic opportunity. A person from a common family, simple family, relatively poor family, but I had this opportunity. It was not designed to be that way, but it happened to be that way. And I am grateful for the Palestinian people and their leadership that have given me this opportunity to be in that position. And I leave it to the Palestinian people, especially those who suffer the most among us, to judge our behavior. I apologize for the fact that yet we did not reach the moment of the independence of our state and the end of occupation. But I am proud of the fact that I marched for a long period of time to reach that moment. I hope that that moment to come soon, because what the Middle East needs and what humanity needs is peace. Peace cannot be at the expense of the Palestinian people. Peace cannot make the Palestinian people the exception to the rule. All those who struggled for freedom before us, including Nelson Mandela, they went through tremendous amount of hardship, but they reached the promised land. And I believe it is our turn to see that happening. And we are trying through the complexity of what is unfolding, including with the style of work of President President Trump. We are working with that administration, with all other nations. Our objective is to put an end to this tragedy of our people. And whoever is ready and willing, genuinely, to work with us for that objective, we extend our hands for them. And the interest of our people do not put us in a position to be fixated in one frustrated position or another. What we need is wisdom, creativity. We need to unleash the genius of the collective mind of the Palestinian people in order to accomplish our objectives. And I think we have people that I am so proud of, called the Palestinian people. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank
the
you.
honor is ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shukran.
Thank you for listening to Hear Our Story, a podcast dedicated to first-generation Palestinian Americans. Special thanks to the Ramallah American Club of Jacksonville and to the production team of Joy Bete Freha, Alex Elias, Janice Farhat, and Chris Varmond. Hear Our Story can be found on all podcast platforms. We look forward to bringing you our next story.